He stood there, watching, as his fellow brother lay dead in his arms. His cold, lifeless body. It was an unfair and unjust death in a pointless war. Pointless. That was what angered him the most. "Move forwards," said the king, yet the pawn didn't move. "Why should I fight?" "Because the white pieces want to take our board, our home, and my role as king is to defend it, and your role as pawn is to follow my orders." Yet the king was right, for he was just a pawn, and alone he was powerless, and power is king. Throughout history, there have been many powerful figures who have shaped the world, changing its course, like Julius Caesar, Alexander the Great, and Genghis Khan. Yet there are also modern leaders who have fought for peace and justice, like Mahatma Gandhi, Nelson Mandela, and Martin Luther King. Despite all of their efforts, today we should all be dead. But this isn't so, because one man, one pawn, saved us from our kings when they had abandoned us. See, it was in 1983, during the height of the Cold War, as Stanislav Petrov stared at his screen in disbelief. "Dear God, is it true, Lieutenant?" asked General Yuri Voachintsev, for the radar showed American missiles heading towards the Soviet Union. The Russian pawn knew that if he confirmed the attack, he would seal the fate of humanity. But he would have enough time to save his family in a nuclear shelter. But if he lied, betting everything on the slim chance that the radar was wrong, he could maybe, just maybe, save humanity. And in that moment, the pawn looked at his superior and he said, "Sir, the radar is wrong." And although he didn't know it at the time, that action saved the world. See, this story shows us the importance of individuals and how they can shape history. They can change the world. Imagine if Yuri Voachintsev, he hadn't done this, the world would be a different place. So history is dictated by the actions of men. Notice how I said men. Had you noticed that until now? Usually, when we talk about history, we talk about men because our Western society has conditioned us to think of history like a patriarchal set of events. But not all women have always stayed quiet. A great example of this was Betty Friedan. She was a feminist and an academic of the conservative America of the 1950s. She made a survey because she saw that American housewives struggled with feelings of loneliness and lack of purpose. And this study was published in her book, The Feminine Mystique, in 1963. This book was such a massive hit that it not only sparked the second wave of feminism in the US, it was around the whole world. Betty Friedan shows us the importance of community and how one can change the very structure of our societies, even if those changes oppose an oppressive system. Now, what happens if this same oppressive system doesn't allow us to use our freedom of speech? In 1973, in my home country of Chile, the government was overthrown by a military coup, which placed Augusto Pinochet as dictator. He ruled with an iron fist, using fear to indoctrinate Chileans. He even planned a yes or no election, knowing that because of the fear of the population, he was certain to win. Or so he thought, for one man would stand in his way, Eugenio Garcia, the No Campaign's creative director. He actually was kind enough to grant me an interview with him, where he told me his first-hand account of the facts. He told me that he didn't plan to defeat Pinochet, no, but to reconcile Chile through peace and joy. And to do this, he and his team planned a jingle called Chile, Happiness is Coming, or in Spanish, Chile, Alegría ya viene. This jingle was so effective from breaking Chileans from the chains of fear that in 1988, Garcia's no option would win with 56% of the votes. He told me that the image of Chileans celebrating in the streets and hugging the policemen that they once feared would be ingrained in his mind forever. And he would make Chile the only country to ever topple a dictatorship through peaceful and democratic means. Why do I tell you these three stories? Because they emphasize what a great leader needs to have. Petrov's courage, Betty Freeman's community, and, well, Eugenio Garcia's trust that peace can be a force for good, for change. But there is one common denominator among these three characters. They all had hope. Petrov had hope in his enemy, in humanity's judgment. Betty Friedman had hope that her community would be able to change the world. And Eugenio Garcia, even in the face of a dictatorship, knew that peace and joy would bring Chile together. Hope that humanity can progress and can change for the better is the only way that we can make the world a better place. And when the pawn's hope overcame his fear, he called to his brothers, "Can't you see? We don't need the kings, for the kings need us. We have the power." And as pawns from both sides dropped their swords, a world beyond the war glimmered. A world where they knew that it was the power. It was the power of the pawns.